Welcome to the Racial Justice Now DMV Chapter Board of Education Updates. I am H.A. Jabbar. I'm here with Director of Racial Justice Now DMV Chapter, Carolyn Erskine. How you doing, Carolyn?
I'm doing well. Excited to be here.
Wonderful. Racial Justice Now is committed to dismantling structural and institutional anti-Black racism in all areas of people activity. Our primary focus for the last 10 years has been on the institution of education and lifting up the voices of disempowered Black parents and children. We are dedicated to stopping the school to prison pipeline, which is alive and well in Montgomery County, and focus specifically on holding institutions accountable to equitable distribution of resources and services to the Black community. All right, Carolyn, we're gonna get started on some Board of Education updates. Tell us what's going on in Montgomery County Board of Education.
There's a lot. So we're going to offer these updates to you occasionally. Today, we're going to talk about something from the August 24th meeting, but we're also going to include some updates around COVID and what's going on with quarantine and et cetera. And we will have a conversation about this. We'll bring conversations to you about what's happening in the Board of Education of Montgomery County Public Schools often. So the first highlight that I will talk about is the social emotional learning curriculum the Montgomery County Public Schools are using. It's called Leader in Me, and it was adopted in the spring 2021. It aims to increase the students' self-confidence, teamwork, initiative, leadership, and problem solving. In the 2021-2022 school year, the first cohort 1, consisting of schools from each cluster, so all the schools and different schools from different parts of the county, will begin implementing the curriculum. Many Montgomery County Public Schools support professionals, central office members of the Board of Education staff, and administrators are receiving the training and learning how to embed components of the curriculum into their work with students. So what do you have to say about this?
I'm interested in learning more about it. I'll be interested in following up with our principal at our local elementary school where our second grader is attending. I'd be interested to know how it's working out at the high school level as well. Social and emotional learning are important dynamics, especially for, you might say, children of color. It's a difficult society to navigate, especially as you're maturing and not yet mature. So it's a great subject to learn more about as a parent.
Thank you. All right, so the next highlight is around student well-being teams. I really like this idea. Student well-being teams consist of cross-functional school-based staff and supporting staff, including administrators, teachers, school psychologists, school counselors, pupil personnel workers, so students, parent community coordinators, and others. They reviewed cases of students who were referred to the team in need of additional support outside of academics, including concerns regarding high absenteeism and health and welfare issues. You want to share any thoughts?
That's something, again, interesting. I'd like to know more about. It's important to know what these well-being teams are executing, or how they're executing, who they report to. Some of the, initial thoughts are, what are their, responses? Are they referring resources, and what are those resources? Who do they communicate with? Who do they share information with? Those are just some of the immediate things as a parent that I think about. But it sounds like it sounds on the surface to be of value, certainly.
Yeah, I agree, though. It's all about implementation, how it's implemented. Good questions. So this is something that Racial Justice Now has been involved with and talking about for a long time. The next topic, restorative justice. So Montgomery County Public Schools is now implementing restorative justice throughout all the schools. During summer 2021, staff members from elementary, middle, and high schools attended restorative justice training, as supported by a 750 I can't say this number, $750,000 appropriation by the county council. Middle and high school restorative justice coaches have been identified to spearhead the work of providing consistent, equitable approaches to building relationships and addressing disciplinary issues. Can you talk a little bit about restorative justice and why this is important to us?
Yeah, this is a great subject. I pulled up on the other computer here a webinar that we have done by Caitlin Morton on restorative practices. It's a part of our culturally relevant curriculum campaign. It was done, looks like 2018 on November 15th as a part of our culturally relevant curriculum and culturally responsive schools webinar series. She talked specifically, Lynn Morton, about restorative justice and restorative practices from a cultural perspective and from a perspective of Black or African going back, you know, in history, and how the roots of restoring any wrong that was done to a fellow community member. So when you have a school, you have a learning community. And so anytime a wrong is done, it's not necessarily go to the principal and have a punishment. Instead, there is a process by which the community can be made whole because it was fractured in some type of way. And so the relationships from student to student or peer to peer, student to teacher, teacher to student, teacher to teacher, and how relationships can be damaged and how that hurts the community as a whole. And so it's a very much different response from just you're suspended for 3 days, which the student may reflect or not over their punishment, and the harm is not addressed and necessarily corrected. And so restorative justice is a non-punitive way of making a community whole and correcting issues as they arise, which they're always going to arise when it more than, you know, two people get together, one person.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's why it's such a great practice, because it gives us real practical ways to be in relationship with each other. And, you know, life is about being in relationship with people. So thank you for that. All right, the next section is around the virtual academy. So Montgomery County Public Schools offer a virtual academy. Montgomery Virtual is what it's called. And it is an MSDE approved blended virtual learning program that will provide an alternative learning environment for students who find the virtual environment more appropriate for their learning needs, or for students who need a virtual instructional program due to extenuating circumstances. There are more than 2,300 students currently enrolled in this academy this year. Montgomery County Public Schools will hold all additional applications at this time and examine availability of seats at the end of each quarter and contact families to gauge their continued interest. So talk to me, Hisham.
Great information to know. You know, this is just information for parents. It's great. I always appreciate having options. And so if something comes up, that's a great option, but it's always great, again, to just know that it exists.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right. So 2 more topics. This one is also very important to us. This is something that we've been talking about and engaging in since before my time with racial justice now. But certainly in your history with justice now. School resource officers. So currently, there is a big conversation around having school resource officers in and out. But what is happening seems a little bit ambiguous, seems a little bit unclear. So I will share a report from one of the 2 school resource officer working groups that's talking about wellness, school student wellness, and things like that. So this report that I'm sharing from this meeting is the Reimagining School Safety and Students Wellbeing Work Group. And then the other group is the Student Wellbeing Action Group. So this group is the Reimagining School Safety and Students, this one is the Student Wellbeing Action Committee. This committee is right now looking at, I'm sorry, and I messed that up again. This one is the committee that has three subcommittees, has mental health, restorative justice, and MOU. So these three committees within this working group are looking at these three separate things. This presentation is on the MOU, and the MOU is the agreement that is made between the schools, the police officers, and I'm not sure else who is involved in the MOU. It may be Health and Human Services as well, but not positive. So where they are with this is that this review is focusing the review of key sections in the current MOU that Montgomery County Public Schools has with police. It's looking at the duties of school resource officers, now community engagement officers. It's looking at incidents requiring schools to contact police. And then the next phase, phase two, will happen, I think they said in November or so, and that is around I'm not positive on that date, comprehensive review of the current MOU, which is going to include more people in the community to look at this MOU, and will focus on supporting students in cooperation of Montgomery County Department of Health and Human Services. So where we are with the CEOs, the community engagement officers, is that they are assigned to specific schools. They are based in community. They are not stationed in schools or on school grounds. They will not enforce Montgomery County Public School policies, rules, regulations, and/or procedures. They will not be contacted directly by school administrators or school security. All calls for police services will be directed to 911 or the police non-emergency number. So tell me, what do you think about this? And what's Racial Justice Now's position on school resource officers?
And so will the student resource officer still be trained by the police?
Yes.
I think that answers both questions. So it's a punitive, a person that, you can call it different things, but, you can call it different things, but it seems as though they're still police end of the day. They're trained by the police, which means that they're often special police officers, which means that they have power to arrest and things of that nature. So it looks like there's more, it looks like there's a lot that was said that has to be reviewed and dug uncover. Again, we're always just coming with this information, sharing with our parents so that they can specifically go to their schools, go and see what the situation is with the resource officer there, and find out information of their family, their friends, their loved ones, their children in their schools, and bring that information back, and then we can have a further dialogue. But it seems, again, if you are trained by the police and you are special police certified, can carry a weapon, have powers of arrest, then, you can call it by another name, but it sounds like the police.
Yeah, it is the police. The difference is that there will be communities as opposed to, and so like in cluster communities as opposed to in schools. There are many questions and concerns that board members have. They'll be in cluster areas. So they'll be in geographic areas. Yeah. Instead of in the schools.
Okay.
That's there's not a lot of clarity. And so the Board of Education had a lot of questions, some questions around data collection, like wanting to know who is being disciplined and for what, how is data going to be collected, why are police being called?